बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय जगन्नाथाय जय बलदेवाय सुभद्रमाय जय सुदर्शनाय जय गौरंगी बेंगलोरेश्वर जय गौरंगी बेंगलोरेश्वर जय गौरंगी जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव जय निताय चैतन्य जय निताय चैतन्य जय निताय चैतन्य जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय Hare Krishna. So today we will discuss from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 33rd chapter, titled Activities of Lord Kapila, and verse number 13 and 14. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। सा चापि तनयोक्तेन योगादेशेन योगयुक् तस्मिन्नाश्रमापीडे सरस्वत्याः समाहिता। सा चापि तनयोक्तेन योगादेशेन योगयुक् तस्मिन्नाश्रमापीडे सरस्वत्याः समाहिता। सा चापि तनयोक्तेन योगादेशेन योगयुक् तस्मिन्नाश्रमापीडे सरस्वत्याः समाहिता। Word by word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Labhe Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Word by word meaning, Sa, she, Cha and Api also, Tanaya by her son, Uktena spoken, Yoga Adeshena by the instruction on yoga, Yoga Yuk engaged in Bhakti Yoga, Tasmin in that, Asrame hermitage, Apide the flower crown, Saraswatya of the Saraswati, Samahita fixed in Samadhi. This Apide word quite interesting, right? The flower crown. We might recollect from Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto when Krishna enters Vrindavana forest, 21st chapter. It's the glory of gopis glorify the Krishna's flute, right? A flute song, right? So in that chapter 10:21:5 it is mentioned Baraha Pidam, Natavara, right? So that Apidam is like that is the crown of peacock feathers. So this we can correlate like this, word by word. Easy way to remember. Anyway, let's proceed with translation. As instructed by her son, Devahuti also began to practice Bhakti Yoga in that very ashrama. She practiced Samadhi in the house of Kardama Muni, which was so beautifully decorated with flowers that it was considered the flower crown of the river Saraswati. Purport. Devahuti did not leave her house because it is never recommended for a woman to leave her home. She is dependent. The very example of Devahuti was that when she was not married, she was under the care of her father, Swayambhuva Manu. And then Swayambhuva Manu gave her to Kardama Muni in charity. As the Vedic culture basically gives a name to this process, that is called Kanyadan. But there is nothing misogynistic or there is nothing regressive about it. We have to just understand it properly. She was under the care of her husband in her youth, and then her son Kapila Muni was born. As soon as her son grew up, her husband left home. And similarly, the son, after discharging his duty towards his mother, also left. She could also have left home, but she did not. Rather, she remained at home and began to practice Bhakti Yoga as it was instructed by her great son, Kapila Muni. And because of her practice of Bhakti Yoga, the entire home became just like a flower crown on the river Saraswati. Let's discuss the next verse today's. Next verse, that is 14th verse. Abhikshnavagah kapishan jatilan kutilalakan atmanam chogra tapasa bibhrati chirinam krisham. Abhikshnavagah kapishan jatilan kutilalakan atmanam chogra tapasa bibhrati chirinam krisham. Abhikshnavagah kapishan jatilan kutilalakan Atmanam Chogra Tapasa Bibhrati Chirinam Krisham. Word by word meaning, Abhikshna, again and again, Avagah, by bathing, Kapishan, grey, Jatilan, matted, Kutila, curled, Alakan, hair, Atmanam, her body, Cha, and Ugra Tapasa, by severe austerities, Bibhrati became, Chirinam, clothed in rags, Krisham, thin. So here we see the Atmana is translated as body. So depending on context, Atma means either body, and sometimes mind, and finally spirit soul. So since spirit soul cannot become thin and all that, in this context the austerity is mentioned. That's why Atmana means her body. Translation. She began to bathe 3 times daily, and thus her curling black hair gradually became grey. Due to austerity, her body gradually became thin, and she wore old garments. Purport. It is the practice of the yogi, brahmachari, vanaprastha and sannyasi to bathe at least 3 times daily, early in the morning, during noon time, and in the evening. These principles are strictly followed even by some grihasthas, especially brahmanas, who are elevated in spiritual consciousness. Devahuti was a king's daughter and almost a king's wife also. Although Kardama Muni was not a king, by his yogic mystic power, he accommodated Devahuti very comfortably in a nice palace with maid servants and all opulence. But since she had learned austerity even in the presence of her husband, There was no difficulty for her to be austere. Still, because her body underwent severe austerity, after the departure of her husband and son, she became thin. To be too fat is not very good for a spiritually advanced life. Rather, one should reduce. Reduce means the shape of the body like fat, that obesity essentially. Yeah, one should reduce because if one becomes fat, it is an impediment to progress in spiritual understanding. One should be careful not to eat too much, sleep too much, or remain in a comfortable position. Voluntarily accepting some penances and difficulties, one should take less food and less sleep. These are the procedures for practicing any kind of yoga, whether Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Hatha Yoga. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा। So today's sequence, the sequence which is going on is like Lord Kapil Dev, he has finished answering all the questions asked by Mother Devhuti, essentially Bhakti Yoga. Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is not different. Yesterday I was discussing in Bhagavad Gita chapter 5 and verse 4, Krishna says, Sankhya and Yoga, Sankhya Yoga prithag bala pravadanti na pandita. Only the childish people say that Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are different. Ekam api sthita samyag ubhayor vindate phalam. If one is well situated in any of these two, one gets the fruit from either or both, actually, essentially from both, right? Ubhayor vindate phalam, right? So Sankhya Yoga is not different from Bhakti Yoga. Why? Because we might remember, by the way, Sankhya Yoga was illustrated by Krishna in second chapter, Bhagavad Gita, right? So Krishna says up to second chapter, like he says matter is different, spirit is different, right? Body is not the soul, right? Like that. So he mentions several characteristics, right, of the body versus soul, right? Like that. Yeah. Beginning from Dehinosmin Yatha Dehe Komarang Yovarang Jara, from there, and then so many verses like Nainang Chandanti Sastrani Nainang Dhati Pavaka, like that, right? So finally at verse 39, he says that Esate Avhita Sankhya Buddhir Yoga Tamam Sarano, right? So like that. Finally, the point is, how is it the Sankhya Yoga non-different from Bhakti Yoga? Because in this theistic Sankhya Yoga, which is the actual Sankhya Yoga spoken by Lord Kapila, Devhuti Putra Kapila, right? So essentially, he describes about 24 elements, right, of the material world, right? And then what happens? It says that soul is different from the these 24 elements, and then basically a theistic Sankhya Yoga, it traces out, okay, these 24 elements are there of matter, but who is behind this? From where has these elements come from, right? Who is behind this? Is there a way that soul is freed from this material existence? Then actually Bhakti Yoga immediately is described, right? And essentially in these chapters, like 7-8 chapters, essentially even while explaining fundamental principles of material nature, There also the first verse mentions that this material elements, it has basically the cause is Lord himself, right? Cause means it is his energy. And then finally one traces out the root, like who is behind this, how can we be free from all this material entanglement. Then bhakti yoga is described throughout, right? Whether it's a 24th chapter, 25th chapter, again 29th chapter, glories of devotional service, so many, right? All chapters are essentially devotional, about devotional service only, right? Because that is the means by which individual soul can be freed from material entanglement permanently, right? So permanently, because why did I say permanently? Because even if someone goes to just Brahma Jyoti, which is actually free from, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi and material entanglement, but one may not, that is not the real liberation. Yesterday we were discussing about like fear, mukti, like liberation, etc. So that is not real liberation, right? So if I again mentioned the example that if someone is kidnapped, right, and some person is kidnapped by basically criminals, and police comes to know, right? Somebody complains, police comes to know, police goes and frees the person, right, and catches the culprits. But even after, let's suppose police actually unties the bondage, like the person was tied up with rope. So let's suppose police actually unties the rope, and the person who is now freed, supposedly freed, remains in the same posture, same location. Is that real freedom? No, that's not real freedom, right? Unless the person goes back to his home, family, or whatever his engagements were there before kidnapping. So till then we can say the person is not really freed, right? Similarly, unless one goes and acts in the way every soul which was its original position or original situation, we say that it is the soul is not really free, not really liberated. Just going to Brahma Jyoti is not real liberation. Why? Because as Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jivar Swarup Krishna Nitya Das, right? So unless one engages lovingly in the service of Krishna or any of his expansions like Lord Ramachandra, Nrsimha Dev, so till that time we can say that the person is not really liberated. Going to Brahma Jyoti is like, means one is free from the problems, but one is not really reinstated in one's eternal occupation, which is actually being with Lord, actually in a spiritual world. Yeah, as it is mentioned 2.10.6 Bhagavatam. Muktir hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. That swarupena vyavasthiti means actually being with the Lord, whether in this material world or a spiritual. But yeah, eventually the liberated, they actually will be in a spiritual planets, one of the spiritual planets, Vaikunthas, right? Anyway, so that was like a bit of recap about real liberation and what is the real actually Sankhya Yoga, right? So just we should know we are different. We are a spirit soul. We are not the body, right? This is the first step. Srila Prabhupada mentions in our journey to basically a spiritual or transcendental or a spiritual journey, right? First understanding is we are not the body. We are a spirit soul, right? So we are different from matter, and we should endeavor to go back to basically our constitutional position, right? Yeah. So with that background, let's proceed further. Yeah. So throughout, actually, if we remember, even from chapter 25, right? So Lord Kapila actually mentions, glorifies the limbs of devotional service, right? Sravanam, and he especially emphasizes on Sravanam and then Kirtanam, and then this seeing the Lord in his deity form in the temple, right? So much, right? So hearing has been emphasized again and again. Hearing Krishna Katha from authorized source, right? And by repeated hearing, Krishna actually, by repeated hearing of Krishna Katha, Krishna becomes dear to us. This Srila Prabhupada has mentioned, So yeah, from sadhana bhakti, prema bhakti is developed in a very simple, conclusive way. We can say that actually Srila Prabhupada has literally mentioned this. From sadhana bhakti, we do develop prema bhakti. It is not that by continuing to strictly following and wholeheartedly following sadhana bhakti, we will remain at some inferior level. That is very big misconception. Srila Prabhupada has very clearly said, by following sadhana bhakti, and actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also said. So by continuing to follow sadhana bhakti nicely, we develop prema bhakti. What is sadhana bhakti? Essentially, we follow chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is called by Narottam Das Tagore as Golokera Premadana. Even though the syllables and letters look like a normal language, Hindi or Sanskrit wording, but it is not so. It is like coming from a spiritual world, and Lord has kindly given this path to actually people in Kali Yuga, right? This is the main means: chanting and performing Sankirtan of this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, right? And hearing Krishna Katha, and when we hear sufficiently, then what happens? We will contemplate on this, we will be able to absorb it, and then we will be able to share with others, right? That is Kirtan, right? So Sravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, right? So this is what is essentially the core part of Bhakti Yoga, right? So that is what Kapila Deva has described, right? So even 25th chapter, he says, Madasaraya Katha Mrishta Sranavanti Kathayanti Cha Tapanti Vividhastapa Naitan Madgata Chetasa, right? So it's like my devotees are, he says, Lord says that my devotees are so basically absorbed in hearing and discussing the past, my pastime, that they don't even feel the pangs of material miseries, right? Essentially. And then later in 29th chapter, again, further glories of devotional service, Mother Devhuti asks, what is the easy way of performing Bhakti Yoga? What is easy for her? What is most suitable for her? Then again, Lord says essentially, he says Bhakti Yoga, there is only one path. Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is same. That's why I'm discussing about Bhakti Yoga. Essentially, it's Bhakti Yoga only. So Lord Kapila Dev says Bhakti path is one, but based on our mode of contamination or domination, different like people, different persons, they act in a different way, even while following Bhakti Yoga. So he begins with mentioning that people who are mostly predominantly influenced by mode of ignorance, they are quarrelsome, they have they are sort of separatist even within society, Bhakti Yoga society, right? All that. So that Prithak Bhava, that continues till actually even Sattvic, like the material mode of goodness, right? So finally he says, what is the basically topmost or the uncontaminated way of what is the symptom? If someone is following uncontaminated bhakti, right? Then he begins, there's famous sloka 329, 11 and 12. Madguna Sruti Matrena Mai Sarva Guhasaye Manogatir Avichenna Yatha Gangam Madho Gangam Bhaso Ambudo Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya Nirgunasya Hudahartam Ahataki Avaveta Ya Bhakti Purushottame, right? The Bhakti Purushottame, right? Unto the Lord, if we perform uncontaminated bhakti, the symptom is that one is immediately attracted to hearing Krishna's name, glories of holy name or holy names, and his pastimes, right? Madguna Sruti Matrena, his name, Nam, Rupa, Guna, Lila, right? Name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, everything, right? So as soon as one hears, one is immediately attracted. How? As Ganges water, by overcoming all obstacle, it goes to meet sea, right? Right, ocean, right? So essentially, that's that's one primary symptom, that someone is performing uncontaminated devotional service, or essentially pure devotional service, right? That is, one must be very attracted to hear Krishna's quality, pastimes and glories of holy names, his names, right? So all his names actually indicate some pastime, right? That's the thing. So by if we say that one must be attracted to hearing the holy name, so name itself is transcendental, but name is associated with individual pastimes. When we say Nandan, right? That means actually how Krishna actually gave pleasure to his father Nanda Baba, right? When we say Yashoda Nandan, we know that how Mother Yashoda actually cared for Krishna, and how Krishna reciprocated with mother's love, right? All that, like Damodar Leela, right? So many things, right? Madhusudan, right? Hrishikesh, every word, right? So Devaki Nandan, right? So many words, right? Kansari, when we say, then that means he's the enemy of Kansa, he killed the Kansa, right? All that thing. So by hearing his name, immediately some pastimes come in our mind, if we have heard those pastime, of course. Yeah. So essentially, he mentioned, Lord Kapila Dev has mentioned the process of hearing and chanting and remembering only. Throughout Bhagavatam, essentially, this topic is in a direct way or indirect way, that is what is emphasized, right? That's why actually one time I was asking or discussing verse, right, on second canto, first chapter 8, right? Idang Bhagavatam Nama Puranang Brahma Samhitam. As soon as I said, quoted this verse, when I was talking to Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Asra Vaishnava Maharaj, so immediately he stopped me and said, see, what is being said is, Idang Bhagavatam Nama Puranam. So he says the Bhagavatam is essentially Nama Puran. And actually Bhagavatam does conclude with glory of Harinam Sankirtan, right? Right. So Nam Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranasanam. Pranamo Duksamnas Tang Namami Haring Param. Right. Anyway, so Nam again, it includes the past time. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So let's cover some of the points which came up directly in the purport, and then we will discuss further. So what is mentioned is, see, practice samadhi. Samadhi essentially is full absorption in Krishna, in Krishna's lotus feet or Krishna's pastime. Full, absolute, without any diversion of mind. One's mind is fully absorbed, right? Savai Manaha Krishna Padar Vindayo. King Ambaris, right? His mind was fully absorbed in Krishna's lotus feet. Sorry, Savai Manaha Krishna Padar Vindayo. Vachamsi Vaikuntha Gunanu Varnane. So anyway, Karo Harer Mandir Marjana Deso, Sutim Chakarachadu Satkathodaya. So anyway, so we can see any character, any devotee who has been mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, they are all absorbed, they are all at that level. Whether it's a Vritrasur, even, actually, in fact, Srimad Bhagavatam is identified by, two different personalities. One is definitely Vritrasur. That Purana in which Vritrasur's glory is described. So Srimad Bhagavatam is described. Why? Even on the battlefield, Vritrasur became so absorbed in Lord Sankarsana, that he started glorifying and begging to the Lord that how can I when can I become again a servant of your servants, right? Like that. So anyway, Samadhi means full absorption in Krishna's lotus feet, right? So she practiced Samadhi in the house of Kardama Muni, which was so beautifully decorated with flowers. So there were so many flower plants or flowers that it was considered the flower crown of the river Saraswati. Yeah, it was on the banks of Saraswati, and the ashram was so beautifully decorated with flowers. Yeah, it looked so nice. So these are all, very high, you could say, it's a sign of goodness. But yeah, sign of goodness on its own, it's not a full cause, or it's not a cause on its own to make one devotee. But yeah, it helps such, such ambience, bhakti. When we follow bhakti yoga process, and if we are in a good ambience, right, then it helps. You cannot practice bhakti in standing on a road crossing chowk, right, like that, or in a bar or restaurant, right? So everything needs actually good ambience, suitable, appropriate atmosphere, right? So it was so apt and suitable, like distraction-free environment, you could say, right? Devotee did not leave her house. Okay, yeah. So this is important in today's time. Actually, okay, what happens? Srila Prabhupada has mentioned throughout the books, all his scripture books, right, that one must follow Bhakti Yoga under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and we are adhering to Brahma Madhva Gauriya Vaishnava Sampradaya, right? So here, none of the acharyas have recommended that ladies, they should give up home and just wander around like a sannyasini or sannyas. There is nothing called sannyasini in our scriptures, right? So yeah, now again let's discuss about Mirabai just quickly. Mirabai is an exception. We cannot imitate her. As simple as that. Srila Prabhupada has also said about it. We cannot imitate Mirabai. She is very, very special case. Okay, in previous life she was one of the gopis of Vrindavan, and there was some special circumstances with her. That's the reason she became like Mirabai, and eventually she gave up her home, and she was in the company of saintly persons. We cannot imitate Mirabai in today's time, and acharyas have strictly told us not to do so. There are exploitative people all around. That is a basic symptom of Kali Yuga. Anyway, so that having clarified that, let's see further. Yeah, she was under the care of her father, Swayambhu Manu. See, Swayambhu Manu is directly the second generation, third generation from Lord, right? Lord to Brahma, Brahma to Swayambhu Manu, right? So, and then Swayambhu Manu gave her to Kardama Muni in charity. Again, this is called, when marriage happens as per the Vedic process, it's called that Lakshmi is given to Narayan, right? Essentially. So it's a symbolic of that, in spirit actually. So it's not something like male chauvinistic tradition. It's not like that. So it's not an object. In fact, she is like wives. They are the Vedic standard is to treat very respectfully. So there is nothing called regressive here. She was under the care of her husband in her youth. Yeah, Kardamuni. Kardamuni, by the way, I wanted to share one thing after this. Kardamuni was, and later she was under care of Kapil Muni. So Kardamuni was very powerful. He was great mystic. And he, when he wanted to get married, he performed very severe penance to please Lord Vishnu. So out of his, mystic power, he could have produced very beautiful lady or girl, right? But he did not do so. So that tells actually the attitude of Kardamuni, right? That not that he just manifested some beautiful lady and enjoyed with her, not like that. So in previous times, actually, earlier era, it was a tradition that before getting married or before, if a Kshatriya is there, before becoming a formal administrator, right? From childhood, one is growing, and prince now one needs to, or one is about to become coronated as Yuvraj, formal prince, and then king, right? So they used to perform tapasya before that. In fourth canto, we will see towards the end, right? The Prachetas, like they, when the time came for their 10 sons, 10 brothers were there, right? So before they could be formally declared prince or administrator, their father told that you should go and perform penance, right? So and they went and they met Lord Shiva on the way, and basically Lord Shiva told seeing their cooperative attitude among the brothers, Lord Shiva became very pleasant, very happy, and he himself appeared and sung the Rudra Geet, right? The 36 verses. Anyway, the point is, it was a tradition to go through some austerity before, taking up important roles, whether as a husband or king or whatnot. Yeah. So here, Kardamuni actually opted to actually please perform severe austerity to please Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu became so actually pleased that and when he saw that Kardamuni has become so jeerna or thin, right? So thin and weak for performing the austerity, that out of compassion, Lord actually said 2 tears of happiness, right? Bliss. So that is actually the source of Bindu Sarovar. Yeah. But anyway, so point is, Kardamuni actually was very powerful, so powerful that is mentioned that he's called Vidhata Varishtha. Daivat Gariyasi. So he could do something which is not ordained by Brahma, or which is not sanctioned. Let's suppose there is some happiness or some some material gain or something which is not ordained by Brahma. So Kardamuni could do even that. Actually, is mentioned like that in the one previous chapters. Daivat Gariyasi. Yeah. And actually, Mother Devati knew about Kapil Muni's, Kardam Muni's qualifications. She already knew before marriage also. So she was very actually happy. And she wanted to actually get married to Kardam Muni. That also is mentioned. Anyway, yeah, so she was under the care of first Kardam Muni. And when Kardam Muni left, then she was under the care of Lord Kapil Dev, right? And finally, what is mentioned? Yeah, she did not leave home, but she remained at home to began to practice Bhakti Yoga. What is the main practice of Bhakti Yoga? Sarvanam. So Kirtanam then. And there is discussion also, right? So how did she do that when Kapil Dev left home, right? Was she alone? No, actually, remembrance, actually, the Smaranam, right? Vishnu Smaranam, that can be, done individually. But we can understand that, there might be some other visitors, which I'm just guessing here. It's not literally mentioned here, but she had other daughters also, or any association, right? So she must have other further association from saintly people or whoever, right? So for kirtan or for discussion, others are required. But for smaranam, previous verse in this chapter itself, 4th verse mentions that she is addressing Lord Kapil Deva as that you are the same personality of Godhead who, at the end of this material cosmic manifestation, who floats on a leaf of banyan tree and you kiss your own toe, right? How does he know that? That sloka, let's actually open and see, right? 4th verse. Very interesting, right? Here, see, Viswam Yugante Vatapatra Ekah Shete Swamaya Shisur Angripana, right? Let's see the translation. Yeah. At the end of millennium, you lie down on a leaf of a banyan tree, and just like a small baby, you lick the toe of your lotus foot, right? So this is Krishna's pastime, right? Markandeya Rishi saw that, right? The point is, from such a cultured family, she must have known all such pastimes of Lord, even while growing up, like during her upbringing in her palace, right? From in Swayambhu Manu's palace, right? Wherever she was staying, right? So these are like a simple glimpse, right? That she already knew all the pastimes. This pastime was not directly told by Lord Kapil Dev, right? The point is, for Vishnu Smaranam, she already had sufficient material and sufficient content which he had learned. And Lord Kapil Dev further re-emphasized throughout his discourse, right? That Sravanam and Mananam also, right? Mananam is automatic part if we have done sufficient hearing. Okay. So the point is, he remained at home and she remained engaged in Bhakti Yoga. Essentially, might be Smaranam part, which is evident. Let's see further. Yeah. Abhikshna again and again, right? Yeah. So this is like a austerity for a proper bhakti yogi, right? Like advanced transcendentalists like brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasi, right? They are recommended to bathe at least 3 times a daily. Even otherwise, also it's actually more or less good that we take bath at least morning and evening, even when someone is not a brahmachari or vanaprastha or sannyasi, right? Morning and evening is anyway it's very helpful, to be externally clean. Yeah, external cleanness is also needed very much. Not that we can remain fully dirty and then still we can be transcendentalist. It's not like that. So yeah, even for grihasthas, actually, Srila Prabhupada mentions about brahmanas, right? Yeah, so even one who is not formally Brahman initiated, one should still take bath 2 times, right? Morning and evening. The general practice keeps the body clean, free from like odors and whatnot. Yeah. Devati was king's daughter. Yeah. So this I already mentioned that Kardamuni was a very powerful personality, and he created that palatial plane, right? The plane was not just small plane; it was a palace, right? Flying palace, and it could go to all such places which was not even possible by all the demigods, right? So that was his like power or capacity, right? Yogic siddhis. Again, she learned austerity even in the presence of her husband. So you know how she served. It's mentioned as Bhavani, right? As Mother Parvati serves Lord, that at that level, Devhuti, without caring for her own comfort and health and all this nourishment, she served Kardama Muni like in a fully determined way, and she knew what is the need of Kardamuni, what does he want right now, all these things. So new. That is also mentioned actually in verses in earlier chapter. In the yeah. So departure, yes. So now let's cover few other some important point. Okay. So yeah, Srila Prabhupada mentions here voluntarily accepting some penance. Okay, to be fat, this thing, right? To be fat is not a very good for a spiritually advanced life, right? So actually, Srila Prabhupada says that we should take only that much food. Even in the matter of prasadam, we should not be extravagant. Otherwise, what happens? Lethargy sets in, right? Especially, let's suppose we have not finished our japa, right? 16 round chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. If we have not finished, and then if we take full meal, heavy meal, then what will happen? Then if we attempt to chant after that, we will just be drowsy. We will be in nidra, not yoga nidra, but maya nidra, right? So that devotional service, which is the core part, especially chanting, that gets affected, right? So if that core aspect is itself affected, then we cannot expect that we are advancing, or releasing bhakti yoga properly, even after years and years or decades of practice, right? Yeah. So the famous verse from Bhagavad Gita comes into picture, right? Bhagavad Gita, we have 6.17, right? I think, yeah. Yuktahar viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu. Yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukha. So actually, let's see that. That will be good only. BGs. It's important to just quickly glance through that. That Yuktahar Vihara says very famous. As Srila Prabhupada says, it is useful. It is a must whether we follow Bhakti Yoga, Hatha Yoga, or any yoga. Yeah, he who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, sporting, essentially, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. The extravagance in any of these things are can block advancement in the practice of yoga. It's important to understand. Yeah. One important thing. Yeah. Avarth Kalatam. Yeah, I was coming to this. Yeah. So what happens? See, Devhuti is now no longer interested in maintaining her body very properly, nicely, right? So that is actually I think that's actually in Chaitanya Charitamrita it's a mentioned famous. Let's open that. I was coming to this. Avartha Kalatam. A Krishna conscious person cannot dare to pass a minute of his life without being engaged in the service of the Lord. Like one who is advancing in Krishna Bhakti would not be wasting any time, okay, in unnecessary things, right? So Mother Dovida is practically in Vanprasth, but we formally cannot label her as Vanprasth because sannyas Vanprasth this designation or this position we don't associate with uh, basically female, right, in our Vedic culture. But still, let's see actually what I Madhya Leela. One second. CC Madhya 2389. I think this is correct. Yeah. Here. This is very relevant. Wait, Mother Devuti's current situation. Chandir avyarth kalatvam viraktir mana sunyata asha bandha samutkantha namagane sada ruchihi asaktis tad gunakhyane pritis tad vasati sthale iti adayo Anubhava Hasur Jata Bhavankure Jane. Let's see the translation. The seed of ecstatic emotion for Krishna fructifies. The following 9 symptoms manifest in one's behavior: forgiveness, Shantir, and then concern that time should not be wasted. This is Avyartha Kalatvam, right? This is what I wanted to correlate with this situation, that now she is not able to spend time to properly or very elaborately maintain her body. Yeah, she did not even bother of wearing today what I should wear, this kind of things, right? Which oil should I apply in my in my hair, right? So all these things did not actually even come to her mind. Why? Because she was already at this level, which is mentioned here, right? So she is so absorbed in especially like the Bhagavad Dharma, essentially Sravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, right? Vishnu Smaranam, pastimes of the Lord, that she does not have even half an hour or even any minute of time to nicely decorate her body. Yeah, that's a very important, a very very big thing actually. It's a very grave thing, because generally it's good that ladies are properly maintained, and they cannot be just like like vagabond or something like that. But we see the advancement of Mother Devoti, so that's her level, that she is fully absorbed in actually Sravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, right, like that. And see what happens. And then detachment, absence of false prestige, hope, eagerness, a taste for chanting the holy name of the Lord, that also is there. Namagane Sadaruchi. Attachment to descriptions of the transcendental qualities of the Lord. As we discussed, Madgunasruti Matrena, Mayi Sarvguhase, right? And affection for those places where the Lord resides, that is a temple or a holy place like Vrindavana. These are all called Anubhava, subordinate signs of ecstatic emotion. They are visible in a person in whose heart the seed of love of God has begun to fructify, right? So it's highly relevant to Mother Devuti's position or current situation now, right? And we all know that she performed so nicely that what happened when Lord Kapila Dev actually left home. Mother Devuti was very morose for quite some time. It was not that it was all fully like devoid of any emotion, and she was very callous and all that. Not like that. Mother Devuti was very much morose, like as Mother Sachi, right? Sachi Mata, mother of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left home, she became extremely morose or sad, or she was in a very pitiable condition, right? That's why she went out of the home in the night only when she figured out that Lord has left home. and she kept calling everywhere, where is Chaitanya, where is Nimai, like that. And finally, that's why one place nobody responded. Maybe they were in sleep. That place is called Nirdaya, right? Nirdaya, like devoid of any mercy or compassion, right? That's famous place. Anyway, the point is, Mother Devhuti was also very much morose, and like so much, like as a cow, right? When a cow loses her calf, how much she actually distressed, right? She actually stops eating and drinking water, right, for days. Actually, I've seen it happening. Actually, when the calf dies, a mother and the cow actually is so much distressed and cries basically for days. Actually, for multiple days, she's not even willing to eat anything. I've seen that happening personally. I've seen, not the herd. So Mother Devhuti's condition is actually described that she was like that cow whose calf has been lost, like that. But eventually, she actually performed, like this verse mentions. She actually started following this Tivra Bhakti, right? Tivrana Bhakti Yogena, Jajata Purusha Param. So Mother Devhuti actually, then somehow or other, she resumed or recovered, and she was performing Bhagavad Dharma so nicely. Essentially, as I started mentioning in the beginning, there is no difference between Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, as per Bhagavad Gita 5.4 also. And here we see, if we see the even chapter names, let's see the chapter's name quickly before we conclude, right? Let's see, from 24 onwards or 25 onwards, right? 17, 18, 19, yeah. See, from this Devhuti's lamentation, yeah, that is after this point. She was lamenting that my husband is so powerful, he could have given me vimukti, but I just wasted my 100 years in just material enjoyment. And then she starts lamenting, why did I not utilize this opportunity? And that is the beginning point of when someone becomes a qualified or deserving candidate for spirituality. Srila Prabhupada mentions about it even in Bhagavad Gita, right? Introduction, right? Unless we inquire that what is there anything beyond matter, can we be free from all this material entanglement? Till that time, we are not suitable candidate or suitable student for a spiritual path, right? So renunciation of Kardamuni, of course, and then see from here only the glories of devotional service. Even in this chapter, I mentioned that actually how to be free from this entanglement, material covering of the soul. So in that, Lord mentions about Bhakti Yoga only. And then finally, again, devotional service, fruitive, but internally, Lord says that how to be free from fruitive, again, devotional service. Here also, Lord mentions about movement of living entity. So basically, some fortunate soul, how they pray to the Lord in the when they are in the womb, right? So again, essentially devotional service, and again, entanglement in fruitive activities. How to be free from the entanglement? Again, through the devotional service. So essentially, Sankhya Yoga means Bhakti Yoga. So it's Lord's instruction also, and we actually could revise and see that it is so in these chapters, right? So yeah, like she knew already all the pastimes and say like of Krishna, and Lord just re-emphasized through her. Actually, Lord has given this thing to us, basically, right? This knowledge to us, right? So yeah, we should also take the instruction of Lord, and we should also be absorbed in hearing or reading Krishna Katha, right? So now, just to quickly close, actually, one second. Yeah, just to close, actually, yeah, like there is fundamental question. Okay, the simplest means is like hearing Krishna Katha from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, yeah, that's it. Yeah, like hearing Krishna Katha and chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the prime means. These are the prime means to actually uplift ourselves through transcendental situation, actually. So I will stop here. If there is any question, we can discuss. Okay, looks like we don't have any question, so we will stop here. ग्रंथ राज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय।